All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are now going to rank the running backs in the AFC South. Now, I know we talked about one of the players in the AFC South for a little bit in DeAndre Hopkins. So now we're going to rank the running backs in that division. And this is the second to last division that we will be ranking running backs in because well, the next division is the AFC West. And then after that, I think we'll rank the receiver groups, the receiving cores in each division next. So let me get DeAndre Hopkins off here and switch him out for the running backs here. So at 4, I actually have Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon last year, I mean, he put up good stats with the Bengals. I think he did get to 1,000 yards with the Bengals last year. Yeah, he had 1,034 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns, 257 carries. He had a good year for them. Going to the Texans, I think that was a good spot for him. I mean, the Texans were looking for running back help with Devin Singletary leaving in free agency. And, Dameon Pierce took a massive step back in year 2. But, I think this is a good spot for him. Now, I'm curious to see what happens now with Cam Akers in the fold. Cam Akers maybe could be that number 2 back and, maybe could steal some touches away from Joe Mixon. And the Texans, when you look at their offense, I mean, they're going to win football games by throwing it. I mean, they're going to be throwing it a lot more than they're going to be running it. And like I said, Devin Singletary did a nice job for them, and I think Mixon can come in and do well. I mean, I think his best days are behind him. But yeah, I mean, the Texans are going to be a team that's going to be throwing it more so. And, like I said, I think Mixon's kind of on the decline. Now, can he still be good? Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's going to be – I don't think he was a bad pickup for them. I think, you're kind of going to get the same level of production, I think, out of him as you would, if you kept Devin Singletary. I feel like. So, we'll see what happens. But, I have him at 4. Then at 3, I got the combination of Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. I'm looking for Tony Pollard to bounce back this season. Last year, I mean, he still finished with over 1,000 yards, but he didn't have the season like he did in 2022. He was more of a threat out of the backfield. He had 9 touchdowns the previous season, to 6 rushing touchdowns last year. Actually, I wanted to look at his receiving stats from 2022. He still finished with around the same numbers. I mean, he had 371 receiving yards in 2022 and 3 touchdowns. He had no receiving touchdowns in 2023. So he had 6 touchdowns in total last year. He had 12 total touchdowns the previous season. But yeah, still finished around the same rushing yards. But he had 193 carries in 2022. Last year he had 252 carries, and he still finished around the same rushing yards. So you would think, like, without Zeke, that he could have gotten a lot more, but that ended up not being the case. I think he was still kind of working through a couple of things, working his way back from the injury, and I think also my friends were having this conversation that he works better if it's in a tandem, and he's not like. I mean, yeah, he could be the lead back, but it's not like he is, getting every touch. Like, there's really just nobody competing with him for touches. Like, Tyjae Spears, I think the way it seems that he's going to, cut into that, and they could be a nice duo together. I'm expecting Tony Pollard, I think, to have a better year than last year, but we'll see. Tyjae Spears last year, he had 100 carries, 453 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Also could be used in the receiving game. 52 receptions, 385 yards, and a touchdown. So, yeah, I mean, as a duo, maybe, that helps out. Tony Pollard. So we'll see what happens there. But, I got them at number 3. And I just realized that I spelled Tyjae Spears' name wrong, so I apologize for that. But anyways, let's move on to Travis Etienne at number 2. Travis Etienne had a solid year last year for the Jags. Was really the engine, I feel like, of the offense. And last year he finished with, so he had 220 carries, 1,125 rushing yards, and 5 touchdowns. And in the receiving game, he had, if I could pull up his stats. So, yeah, 11 rushing touchdowns. And he also had 476 receiving yards and 1 touchdown, so 12 touchdowns in total. Yeah, he could do a lot of different things for you coming out of the backfield. I think he's going to have another big year for the Jags. But yeah, I like him better than the other running back situations. Now the Jags, I mean, we'll see how the offense is. Trevor Lawrence on that new contract. How is he going to be? I know, it sparked a big debate with him and Tua in our production meeting. But yeah, I mean the Jags, they're looking to bounce back. And Travis Etienne's going to be a big part of that. You hope that the offensive line is improved this year. Yeah, I just think that he's going to have another good year, and he's going to be a big part of what the Jags do, especially on offense. So yeah, I got him at 2, and then at 1 I got Jonathan Taylor. Missed the first few games last year. I mean, because he's trying to get his new contract. Eventually, did get it. Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson this year. I mean, that's going to be something to look forward to. Last year, 169 carries, 741 rushing yards, and 7 touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, you expect that number is going to go back up, and he's going to, have over 1,000 yards, I would imagine. If he plays in every game, I think he'll get back to over 1,000 yards. His 2021 season, 332 carries, 1,811 rushing yards, and 18 touchdowns. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's an unbelievable year. But yeah, 2022, I think missed some time due to injury. He had 11. Yeah, he played in 11 games, and then last year he only played in 10. So, you figure if he plays in 17 games, he's going to get, back up to 1,000. So, and like I said, him and Anthony Richardson, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch those two guys in the backfield. I know I talked about, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the same backfield, but this backfield, could be really exciting to watch with those two over the course of a full season. And people are high on the Colts. They think the Colts can be, a good team, going into the season. I mean, last year they finished 9-8, and that was with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, and now Anthony Richardson over the course of a full year, and Jonathan Taylor, playing every game. It's that could be a good offense, and they got young receivers. So yeah, the Colts, the Colts could be a good team once again, and they could definitely be a team that's fighting for. I mean, I had the Texans winning the division, but they could give the Texans a run for their money for the division. I mean, they play the Texans right off the bat, so if you can get a win against the Texans early on in the year, that'd be huge for them. But yeah, they're definitely going to be in the mix for a playoff spot. The way I talk, you think every team's going to be in the mix, but like I said, when you look at the AFC as a whole, there's really like 2 or 3 teams that you probably can't make the case for to make the playoffs. Every other team you could really make the case. So, yeah, those are my running back rankings though for the AFC South. So just to kind of go through it again. So at 4, got Joe Mixon. 3, the combination of Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. 2, Travis Etienne, and then 1, Jonathan Taylor. Now, Travis Etienne's probably the better receiving back of the 2, but for me, I like Jonathan Taylor at the 1 spot here. But it's definitely close. You could definitely change it up with those two. Those are the top two backs in the division. You know, we'll see how it goes though for the other situations because Tony Pollard's on a new team, Joe Mixon's on a new team. How are they going to do with them? And we'll see if like I said, Tyjae Spears. How is that going to work with Pollard? And is maybe Cam Akers? Could he possibly cut into Joe Mixon's playing time? That's something to look at. But those are the running back rankings for the AFC South. Like I said, next week we will cover the AFC West running backs. We'll rank them, and then we'll get into the receivers as well. So that's kind of what we're gonna do. We're just gonna rank, position players, position groups, till we get to the start of the season. So, but let me know what you guys think about these rankings. How would you rank the running backs in the AFC South? Let me know in the comments. But so that's these are the second to last running back rankings. Like I said, we'll get into the AFC West, and then we'll move on to the receivers. So, in the final segment of the show, we'll get into talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll talk about what Devin White had to say. Devin White, of course, was a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now he's with the Eagles. So, he had some things to say about, about the struggles that the Eagles had down the stretch and obviously, what happened to them in the playoffs. So, we'll get into that when we come back from our final break of the show. And that'll be it for the week. For the week. And then next week, got a full slate of preseason games, which is going to be really exciting. More stuff to talk about. So for one final time today, we're going to take our last break. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.